This is the crossroads of America. It has the best values. We are the Oklahoma standard.
And we were struggling, man. But we kept going. Why? Because we got grit. We're Oklahoma.
Sir, I'm just trying to make sure your kids and my kids don't move to Texas to find a job. Like, we literally told the nation and the world as we would drive down interstates that Oklahoma is, we're okay.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, we have it all, and we can do it at a lower cost. And that, I believe, is where the LG on day one can flourish.
I'm Brian Hill, and I believe in Oklahoma. By holding to our hometown values and investing in ourselves, we will unleash our very best. United, let's move Oklahoma forward. Together.
We are Oklahomans for Hill.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Baffrey. I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm a proud Oklahoman and excited to have this opportunity to talk to Brian Hill, who is a candidate for lieutenant governor coming up soon. And you've enjoyed some great time at the Capitol over the past several years, but now it's time to take a step forward.
Jason, this has really been an exceptional opportunity. First, thanks for having me on with you today. I really appreciate you. Listen, over the last 8 years, I've had the opportunity to serve in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. I currently chair Commerce and Economic Development Oversight. And so the way I would describe that is if it creates a job in Oklahoma, I have the privilege of chairing that area. And so I believe that we're at a moment for our great state where if we invest in ourselves, we can move ourselves forward. And that really is kind of my passion. It's my heart.
Aside from your work in the Capitol over the past few years, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So Melissa and I, we've been married 24 years. We've got 2 kids, Eleanor, who's 19, Josiah, that's 16, and really just love our family. We live on a small little farm out around Mustang, and chickens, horses, dogs, and just really everything I could have wanted as a kid. And Melissa and I, we've been entrepreneurs, started first company when I was 26. And from there, we've continued to diversify over the last 20 plus years. And about 8 years ago, we really sensed there was a change kind of coming in both our business and in our family. I was doing a lot of consulting at that time. I'd go into companies that were struggling, that were in the red, and help them get back into profitability. And I was speaking in business conferences. I'd published a book at that point, and we just knew there was kind of this change happening. And for me, there was always this ongoing question: how do we build the future in Oklahoma that our kids want, right? That our kids are going to want to flourish and thrive in. And so that led me to run for office 8 years ago. And since then, every day, it's been about how do we make sure that your kids and my kids don't move to Dallas or Denver to find their future.
What do you feel like shaped your views on public service over the years?
Oh, wow. So my granddad was a pastor in the tri-state area. And I used to watch Granddaddy, who had a 5th grade education. He didn't learn to read until he was in his 40s. But man, that guy was just so wise, and his heart for service and for serving the community bled into every part of what he lived. And I remember even as a young kid that I just wanted to live a life worthy of his example. And it has really kind of been the guiding principle. How do we make a difference in the world? That's our question every point of every day.
Yeah, that's great. Why lieutenant governor? What is it about that specific role that makes you want to run for it, and what makes you the right man for the job?
Well, I appreciate that question. Like I said, the very first door I ever knocked 8 years ago, I'm standing on the guy's doorstep and kind of just fumbling around. I'm trying to figure out what to say. I'm just a business guy that wants to make a difference, right? And finally, the guy looks at me. He's like, Hill, why are you running? And almost out of irritation or desperation, I look at him and I said, sir, I'm just trying to make sure your kids and my kids don't move to Texas to find a job. And he says, that I can vote for. And it really became my calling card. And it really has guided my work of 8 years in the Capitol. It is more than just a campaign thought for me. It is a word by which I live. I literally believe every part of that. And so I've worked in developing out the ecosystem of the jobs of today and of tomorrow, and being part of touring career techs and universities and connecting those institutions with employers that are creating the jobs, and asking the question of how do we move ourselves forward. And you look at the role of the lieutenant governor, and that is the chief executive for branding, for workforce, for tourism in the state, which is why I believe with the role that I currently fill in the House and the work I've done throughout not just the last 8 years, but in my life of being a job creator, of going into communities that are struggling and pouring into the young generation. I believe that truly is the role of the lieutenant governor for our great state of Oklahoma. I believe it is the role by which we can move our state forward and not take our foot off the gas, which is the whole reason I'm running.
Yeah, that's very good. Let me rephrase this. When you become lieutenant governor, what's the first issue you want to tackle?
Economic development, workforce, tourism. For me, it's that same idea of what we've been doing and how do we give a statewide platform to that work. Simply put, how do we make sure that the job creators have a voice that is expressing their ingenuity and the great work that they're doing of creating jobs to outside the state, but also inside the state? How do we make sure that opportunities such as tourism, which is our third leading generator, our third leading part of our economy, how do we make sure that it has a strong voice that is being pushed around the nation and around the world, that Oklahoma is the place to be? It is the place to come and spend your dollars. And then to companies, this is the place for you to move your headquarters here. Like, this is the place you want to build your future and your dreams. Oklahoma, we have it all, and we can do it at a lower cost. And that, I believe, is where the LG on day one can flourish. Simply put, let's take the work with the workforce map that we've developed, with the connections that we've developed throughout all of the different agencies, and take that from a statewide branding model and push it forward from day one. I believe that's how we can do it.
Yeah. You brought up some interesting points there. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I've moved away a couple of times, have been back for a number of years now. I've seen the development that we've experienced, not only in Oklahoma City area, but the state. You mentioned you're from the Mustang area. You have a farm, but you're still kind of in the metro area. People might think that you're very urban-minded, but I suspect that because you're in Mustang, because you have a farm, that rural issues are important to you as well.
Absolutely. When we are talking about in the United States every day, you have thousands of farms, family farms, that are either being sold off to large corporate farms or being turned into housing developments. I think that is not just food security, that's homeland security. So we must do a better job of working with the young generation to provide them the tools to be the next generation of farmers, ranchers, producers. I think agritourism is a crucial part of that. I see where agritourism is providing opportunities for ranchers, farmers, producers to subsidize through additional income revenue coming in through people coming on. And not only is it a economic generator, but it's also an education tool for those that do live in urbanized areas. And whether that's an alpaca farm, or whether that's a blackberry farm, or whether it's a working cattle ranch that gives you the opportunity to actually stay overnight. 3 examples just this week that I toured. I believe there's so many opportunities to connect that in. I also think what's really important, Jason, is that we don't just view the state as 2 urban meccas, right? Thank God we've got Oklahoma City and Tulsa. They continue to flourish, and that's important. But I believe for our long-term success, we need 10 distinct economic hubs. When we do that, regionally based around the state, based on the patterns of where people want to be and where they're spending money already, by investing in ourselves in infrastructure, water lines, and roads and bridges, all of those infrastructure pieces, even down to broadband. When we do that, it shifts the ecosystem, not just for those hubs, but for all of the surrounding towns. I believe, Jason, that's how we strengthen and restore all of Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma. There's the sad truth that when a community loses its grocery store, well, frankly, it's a death blow to the community, if we're honest, because first they lose their street lamps, then they lose their fire, and then they eventually lose their police. And once that happens, no one new's moving in. But by investing in infrastructure in these regional hubs, it creates suburbanized areas around it by which people start to move to small towns again and start to invest. You get your grocery store back, and thus all of the ecosystem grows. That's what every family's looking for. Better opportunities for their kids and their grandkids than what they had. And I believe this is how we accomplish it.
Yeah, that's great. Talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions we have as the state of Oklahoma, and then how do we overcome some of that?
Part of it, we've done some of this to ourselves, Jason. Like, let's be honest. We, for generations, had on our license plate, Oklahoma is okay. Like, we literally told the nation and the world as we would drive down interstates that Oklahoma is, we're okay.
Yeah.
Like, are we wonderful? Nope. We're okay. Right? And so we put that narrative in people's minds. We allowed other people to tell our Oklahoma story.
Really?
We are above a state that tells you everything is bigger there, everything is better there. And yet we were telling our young people, we're all right. I believe that when we changed that in 2020, it was a ringing of the bell. It was a changing of the guard to where we were making a statement. Oklahoma is truly exceptional. It is amazing. This is the crossroads of America. It has the best values. We are the Oklahoma standard. All of those things that you and I know daily, but we haven't always been good at telling the rest of the nation and the world. A story I heard recently about a gentleman that had come in from out of state. And as he was there, he was talking about moving his business at that time to Texas. And he begins a conversation with two older farmers there at the coffee shop. And this story actually happened. It's not just even proverbial. And they look at him and he says, but I am actually thinking about maybe moving here to Oklahoma. They both look at him and say, well, why would you want to do that? Now, the interesting point was he had a conversation with them, and they shared that they had never lived anywhere else. They wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and they were proud to be Oklahomans. But when they talked to someone from outside, it was almost like they were ashamed.
Sure.
Right? I believe that we've had generation after generation since 1907 in this great state that have felt that. And I'm proud to tell you that narrative has changed. 2023 was the first year in our state's history that more people moved to Oklahoma from Texas than vice versa. It happened again in 2024. I believe the data will show it again for 2025. Why? Because they are seeing what is exceptional about Oklahoma, and they want a piece of this. They want to be part of our ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been interesting. In some of the roles that I've had the opportunity to host people that have come in from out of state, some that have never been here before. And first of all, their views of what they thought the state was going to be are completely distant from where we really are. But the great thing is they always are amazed about what we are as a state, what we've been able to accomplish, the amenities that we have, the things that we are able to do, and they always leave with a much better view of the state than what they had before they came in, and to the point of telling their friends about it and saying, I need to get more people to come here, and hopefully bring their businesses here as well.
Absolutely. So if you're looking at the different parts of our ecosystem, the things that I think we even commonly think of, like the Thunder, man, what an exceptional victory story for our great state. But then you start looking at our highway system. Our highway system is very impressive when you consider it compared to some of the other states that are comparable to us. The fact that we have 3 crossing interstates right? That alone. Then you consider some of our other highway system. You saw strategic investments in the late 80s, early 90s. The highway systems that were put in place, 4-lane highways to every community of 10,000 or more. Those things are pretty exceptional. But then you look at our state parks, our 37 state parks that we have regionally based that are this exceptional asset of our state. And then you start to look at the opportunities like career tech and higher ed. Our career tech system is second to none in any other state. In fact, it is the only one of its kind with 60 distinct campuses spread across the state. I've had the privilege of touring over 50 of them now. There are 29 different distinct systems around the state. And man, what they are doing every single day to position the workforce, to engage them into the opportunities of the future is really exceptional, whether that's in aerospace or biotech, biomed, or in traditional healthcare. They are literally at the front edge, the tip of the spear, if you will, for the future of Oklahoma. And I think that's why you have companies from other states that are constantly looking at us now as the place to be. And I think that's exciting about tomorrow for Oklahoma.
Yeah. How can the state better support small businesses and entrepreneurs, not only in the urban areas, but also the rural areas?
I believe that's a really important part for commerce as we move forward. I believe there has to be this engagement. Rural has to define what it will be, right? Like the last idea that anyone wants, that any of us needs, is for the Capitol Dome for 23rd to make the decision, 23rd and Lincoln to make the decision for what Alva wants to be, or what Altus wants to be, or what Hugo wants to be. But instead, if we invest in those core pieces of infrastructure that the community wants, so a place like Durant, who has the second largest traffic flow coming into it every single day, there's 40,100 people coming into Ardmore, the largest. The second is Durant on Highway 69 or 75. That is extraordinary. And what they need today is a 10-inch water line to become a 24-inch water line. What that results in is in 3,000 new homes and 3,000 new jobs, so much opportunity and excitement. And that's something that community is looking for, what they want, right? So if we as a state invest in that core infrastructure, that core role of government, it produces opportunity. And when we look all around the state, we see the same example. And the great part is if you invest in Durant, it then produces opportunities for Atoka, for Alva, what it does also for Hugo, for Idabel, for Broken Bow. It produces regional impact. And I believe that's how we can ensure that we are keeping the values and core of who Oklahoma is. We're not trying to change rural Oklahoma. We're just trying to make sure that the infrastructure is there to accomplish every dream, every desire of every family, to where every kid is within 1 hour of an economic hub of opportunity within 2035. Within 10 years, every kid across this great state within 1 hour of an economic hub. When we do that, that young person is able to get up from the farm in the morning, go do the job of their dream, and still be back on the farm for dinner, or at least Sunday for lunch. And that, to me, is success for every Oklahoman.
I think the obvious question that an Oklahoman is going to ask in response to all of that is, how do we fund those types of plans to be able to do that, especially in some of those rural communities?
Such a great question. By being very strategic. Every year, we look at projects all around the state. Traditionally, it could be based on a position or a request from a certain individual. We were bringing in the data. That was the goal, was to make this data-directed decisions, and then to ask the communities, the regional hubs where traffic was showing, that you had a highway, a career tech, and a university, knowing that those three things produce economic hubs. Highway gives you connectivity. Higher ed and career tech give you education opportunity, but it also provides population density. And so when you look at those those metrics. And then you start to add in all of the other investments a community is making in itself. A community like Enid that has put $134 million into a new water system, and then they've got Vance Air Force Base. Well, we put $5 million into an educational system up there in order to protect the base, but also to provide opportunities in that region. When you do that, it not only affects Enid, it affects the whole area. The great part is we're already making investments in ourselves every year. Now we're trying to do it as data-driven decisions. And I believe that's something that the lieutenant governor can guide on. We're already investing these dollars. Let's just be really smart about where we're doing it to make sure that there's a generational impact from it and that it impacts an entire region, not just one municipal, but thousands and thousands of lives in the surrounding area as well.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about economic development, how we can improve things both in the urban areas and the rural areas. Let's change gears just a little bit. When you look at some of the other major issues for the state, what do you see of things that you could do to champion around, say, mental health, education, or public safety?
Sure.
Are any of those hot button issues for you, or do you have plans around any of those?
Well, let's just touch education, right? Like, I think that's a great one to go with. It affects all of our lives. It affects the future, and frankly, it affects every part of workforce. I started asking questions about 2 years ago, specifically on a couple of things that kind of stood out to me in the workforce. And, once again, not running to be the state superintendent. That's someone else's role. But I believe that the lieutenant governor can have an influence in that in some really simple ways, to be honest with you. When you look at the ecosystem, part of where we continue to get punched as a state is on third grade reading scores and then graduation scores, which is based on the ACT. So I started asking questions about, what does that really look like? Is it a urban versus rural divide, which is where most of our issues are? Is this something that, our system is off? And so to the third grade reading scores, what we learned was that in 2011, there was a legislation that was passed. The same legislation was, and consequently, it was also passed in Mississippi. And so in 2015, 2016, Oklahoma backed off. Mississippi kept moving forward. That had a long-term impact that we are now reaping the harvest of in Oklahoma on third grade reading scores. I believe it's now time to put the teeth back in to that policy, put that back in place. I think that will have a generational change. So I think that's step one. I think there's also concerns. I'll leave the name of the test unknown, or unsaid, but that specific test, we are one of 10 states that requires that test for graduation. We run that test during the junior year, so not the additional test. My daughter actually took that test. She's now a freshman in college. The first time she took it her junior year, she then took it 2 more times her senior year. By the third time, she had gone up 7 points. 7 points. But all of the metrics are based on her junior year. And then we continue to take punches, but we're only one of 10 states that are using that test. Now, if it's an intelligence or a cognition issue, that's one thing. But if it's because we're using a specific test that isn't properly showing the educational cognition of our kids, well, we're doing them a disservice. And so I'm not saying that we know the answer. I am saying we need to be asking those questions. And so if it comes back to third grade reading scores, if it comes back to them taking this one distinct test their junior year that only 10 different states are taking, and then being compared to 40 other states as well, some that are creating their own test, by the way. Let's be clear of that. Some states are creating their own test. Well, I'm not sure that that's a adequate determinant of educational outcomes, if I'm honest with you. But regardless of that, I believe it really is crucial that we ask the questions, that we begin to pursue long-term answers. And that I think the other thing is that we once again begin to celebrate teachers. Look, I work on workforce every day. It consumes most of my role. What I can tell you is the 3 top industries that we need more of every single day: nurses, engineers, and teachers. Nurses, we found out it was a problem of placement. During COVID, we had over 555 applicants at one specific university. They only had room to take 200. The state, we invested in that problem. And now, if you want to be a nurse, there are positions and opportunities for you all around the state. We're resolving that 2,200 per year fall off of retirement in nursing. Engineers, that starts in 3rd and 4th grade, right? A kid having a love of math. We need to produce more engineers. That's not just a Oklahoma issue. That is a nationwide issue. When it comes to teaching, we could almost take the 80,000 kids that will graduate from Oklahoma schools this year, and you could almost put every one of them into a teaching program. The problem is our young people are reluctant to go into teaching. Part of that is because of our vernacular. We have not supported teachers. I believe it is important. Yes, call out bad apples, right? Call foul balls. Absolutely. But I believe we also have to celebrate those that are making a difference in their lives. I've met some exceptional teachers that have been doing this for 20 and 30 years, and they believe it is no different than the call of the pastor in the pulpit for them to go in and make a difference in young people's lives. I believe it behooves us. I believe it's important that we pour into them, that we celebrate them. And I think as a statewide, regardless of if you're, the superintendent of public education or any other office, I believe we have a responsibility to make sure that we are celebrating them. It's something that I've tried to do in my own district as a legislator, and I will continue to do as LG. I think some of it's simple too. I mean, when we're in communities, I'm in different communities every day, even as a candidate. The LG and the G, they're both moving around the state. What if we just took 10, 15 minutes to make sure that when we're in a community that we're going by the school, we're meeting with the teacher of the year for that local school district and presenting them with a citation? What does that say to young people that are looking and seeing, oh, we honor this. We recognize the importance of teachers. Mom was a teacher and looking at how important those impact. For me in my life, I struggled to read. I was a late reader. And Miss Chin, if it hadn't been for Miss Jan, man, I don't know that, one, I would have gone to college, much less that I'd be sitting here today, right? And so I just think it's so important that we, once again, value those that are pouring into the next generation, that they feel our support, and that we move our great state forward.
Yeah. All of that brings up the obvious question, and it's been a topic of discussion for years, is what about teacher salaries? Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any plans for that?
Well, once again, I'm not sure that fits within the role of the lieutenant governor, but what I can tell you is as a legislator, I have voted for every pay raise for teachers. We've had the largest pay raises in state history in a certain amount of time during the time I've been in the legislature, and I was proud to support those. I believe, as with every industry, you have to continue to invest in it in order to get more of it, right? Like that's just crucial. I do think there's also, when I talk to teachers, what I find fascinating is, yes, there's always going to be those that are talking about revenue. That's just part of it. But I find that most teachers want to feel the support for the work they're doing. They want to feel value. Right? Like, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a value proposition. Do you value the work I'm doing? To families, to parents, see the value in those 8 and 9 hours that they're pouring directly into the kids in classroom, not even in addition to the hours of training and reading and preparing for class. I think it is extremely important that we invest in ourselves, that we continue to celebrate those that are doing the top-notch, high-quality jobs and letting them know that they're valued. And I would do that in the private industry. And I believe it's the exact same in education as well.
Yeah.
I humbly ask for your support, for your vote to be your next lieutenant governor. You're ready to make a difference? Go to hillforlg.com. I truly believe that by standing together, we can unleash our best and move Oklahoma forward.
Brian, you've talked about the three main careers that need a university degree, but you and I have talked before, there's a lot of kids that aren't necessarily going to go to university. They don't want to go to university, but we have other jobs, manufacturing, for instance, where we need people that want to go and have a career. How do we change that perception and work with younger students along the way to convince them there are some great opportunities to make incredible salaries where they don't have to have a 4-year degree or an 8-year degree?
That's asking the right question, right? And I believe that's where it begins. I'm not sure we've always asked the right question. This morning, I got to meet a young man that was talking about that when he was in 9th and 10th grade, he really was considering dropping out. He was just kind of going through the motions of it. In fact, in his words, he said, and I quote, "I hated school." And he ended up enrolling in a program the beginning of his junior year at the tech. And he was in mechanics, working on cars. He got his certification in that. And then the instructor said to him, "Hey, have you thought about the aerospace class working on engines for planes?" And he said it was really the first time he had really thought about it. And so he goes. I'm proud to tell you that kid next week is going to take his test, and what his opportunities before him, even before graduation now, are massive. I mean, we're talking the edge of 6 figures. I mean, starting. And that's a kid that wasn't sure he was going to finish high school, and now he's going into aviation, and he's going to go work on engines for planes, right? I see all of those types of areas over and over. Now, another young lady I talked to, and I asked her, she's a senior, and she said that she's starting OU next year. Now, when she starts OU, she will have a certification already that she can either use to make money while she's going to college, a real job while she's going to college, or she can then micro-credential with it. That's where our ecosystem has shifted, is that now it's not necessarily about getting a 2-year or 4-year or 6-year or a doctorate. Right now, it's about what job do you want, what training do you need, and how do you leverage and upskill yourself. It really is a total shift in the ecosystem. And I love that, because now it's not just about me going to college, spending a couple of years trying to find myself and find something that I like, which is unfortunately a little bit more my story, if I'm honest. And probably like many of us,
like mine.
Right? I was first generation to go to college, and my parents, instilled in me, go to college. Why? Because they wanted me to have better than what they had. Exactly. They had made sacrifices. Now, with this ecosystem, it allows you to kind of guide your own path to where, yes, maybe you've got a certification over here. Now you add on a micro-credential, which adds on an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a year. And then you're in the trade and you realize, oh, I have opportunity for a higher management position if I get this bachelor's degree or associate's. And so then you're able to go add that on. You really are now the captain of your own ship as far as workforce. And I love the fact that Oklahoma stands strong when it comes to the ecosystem. We have the top career tech programs in the entire nation. We lead in this area. Industry notices it. Companies around the nation have noticed it, and that's why you continue to see them moving in. 60 distinct campuses even today around the state. And I believe those provide real solutions. I think that's what Oklahoma's secret sauce is that there's not just one path to success now. There's multiple ways to get there. And so whether it's college, whether it's career tech, whether it's trades, whether it's military, And none of those are now mutually exclusive. It's not that you're choosing one, it's which one do you start with here, and then where do you decide to take it from there. That's exciting.
So let me ask you this. Are we doing a good job of communicating that through the school systems?
We must do better. And I believe that starts with us as electeds, making sure that we're using our platform, our voice, in order to share that. I think you've got where Career Tech brought in Mike Rowe to talk about the skills. Right. Man, yes, we need more plumbers. We need more electricians. We need more welders. You bet. We need more trades. And then the cool part is you see where that gentleman, that guy goes after he's a journeyman and after he's done his apprenticeship and then after he starts his own company. And now you see him going back and getting a 2-year degree to add on. So now he's got business management under his tool belt too. So now he's got 5, 6, 7 trucks, all based off of beginning over here. Well, he didn't go trying to find himself. He poured himself into something that he had a talent on, and then it created opportunities. And I believe we as electeds need to do a better job of sharing that. That's why mine and your conversation today is so important. I believe it's yes and I believe that the more we do yes and, like that young lady this morning who started in Career Tech while in high school, who is now going to college, it isn't pulling from one, it's giving better guidance. So when she goes, she gets the degree that is right for her. So she's not just coming out with debt, she's coming out with a plan.
Yeah, very good. Talk a little bit about the role of lieutenant governor in this state, and then also how that works with the governor.
So I think you've got two different models. You've got the historical model where the LG was kind of just a space filler, if we're honest. And I've heard some of the predecessors talk about that there was great frustration and, they didn't always feel like their role really mattered. Then you see the current lieutenant governor, who I believe has done a phenomenal job. You've seen him walk into spaces of tourism and commerce and been very involved with a lot of the work I've worked on with workforce. He has been engaged. He's been moving the needle forward. I believe that is an important example of where the office can really be meaningful. And I believe that our next lieutenant governor on day one needs to be ready to fill that same role. I think it's also extremely important that as we're looking at that we have someone that on day one is ready to carry policy forward if they must become the governor. I think that's extremely crucial. I believe that we as a state cannot afford to slow down. I believe now is our moment. Now is when, if we invest in ourselves, we can flourish, we can thrive. Our current LG has had that focus from the very beginning, serving over the chair of tourism, also being on the CLO board, which also impacts funding for schools, and then the other 9 boards and commissions that the LG serves on. I believe by making sure that our next LG has that type of workforce, economic development, tourism, commerce focus, our opportunities are limitless. We need to make sure that we have a chief branding officer that can walk in on day one into any office and be prepared to talk about the greatness of Oklahoma, be that brand champion. And so that's where I think we can take that role and move it to the next level. As far as working with the next administration, I think that's extremely important. I believe those conversations need to happen even before elections. I believe having those talks of where do you see your LG fitting in and how can the LG work with you to produce the strongest Oklahoman, the strongest opportunity for every Oklahoma child. I believe those conversations are crucial today, not to wait for a year from now, but now. And I believe by doing that, I think we can better prepare ourselves. So on day one, we're not waiting to come up with a plan, but we already have a plan to move in place.
For people that maybe they're not from Oklahoma, maybe they don't follow politics at all, and I think there's people out there that are like that. You and I are a little different, but there may be people that just don't follow it. And there may be an assumption that the governor, lieutenant governor role functions in the same way as, say, the president, vice president, and it's a package deal. But it's not here in this state. Those are elected independently. So your campaign is completely separate from those that are campaigning for governor.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that and then how that affects your campaign and your goals.
Yeah, so I actually get that quite often. I was, to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised, like you. I mean, I'm kind of in the dome sometimes,
Yeah.
and so we can get a little unaware that of how people view it. And so, yes, it is independently elected. I think that's important. It's very Oklahoma in our values. We have 11 statewide electeds. And so the lieutenant governor being independent of the governor, I believe that's important because it then provides you, the people. It provides we, the people, the opportunity to have another voice at the table that we elected ourselves, that we are able to ensure carries our voice, our desire. I believe, especially when we're talking about the chief branding officer, the chief commerce, the chief tourism officer, which is our expectation of the lieutenant governor, I believe that's even more important because that individual is able, outside of the governor's administration, to be able to see it, speak to it, and be involved in it. That's one reason over the last several years, I've been very aware. As I've said, we have 60 career tech campuses. I've toured over 50 of them at this point. We have very close to that in colleges and universities, campuses and sub-campuses. We've been to many of those. I believe that's important, that we're meeting with CEOs of companies of 6,000 and CEOs of company of one, right? Which has been a lot of my companies. And that we're also then meeting with those that are creating the workforce for those companies of 6,000 or one, and that we're providing them the education and that they have that voice that is pushing forward opportunity for Oklahoma. You know, all I can do as an entrepreneur is what I have in my hands. That's all I can do. I can't fix the road in front of my business. I can't fix the water line in front of my business. I can't bring more people into my business other than trying to market it myself. But as the state's chief branding officer, focused on the economy, focused on tourism, focused on all of those crucial parts that create a thriving ecosystem, I believe that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner myself, I really want to make sure that that person is ready to speak brand Oklahoma, to speak the strength of Oklahoma, to talk about Oklahoma is more than okay. We are beyond that. There is opportunity on the horizon for our state, and if we will unleash our best, we can move ourselves forward and change it all together.
What leadership qualities do you feel the state needs right now?
Man, I think knowledge, I think passion, I think those two things to me stick out above all. Is that you can have all knowledge all day long, but if you don't have the ability and the personality in order to move that forward, people are, it's just going to fall flat. On the other side, you can be as passionate as you want to be, but if you don't have the experience and the knowledge in order to share the details to entrepreneurs, to CEOs, to companies both inside the state that are wanting to grow and companies outside from around the nation that want to move into Oklahoma, that also falls flat. We need expertise. We need someone that can step in on day one, not a job in training, but day one, to be able to speak with heart and passion and vision, but also with knowledge and expertise, not just learned, but visually seen, right? In the space, talking to the people that are creating the jobs and talking to the people that are creating the workforce. I believe that is so crucial. So those two things I believe stand above all right now.
Yeah. Do you have an example of a tough decision that you've had to make in your role currently that illustrates how you would lead in this office?
Yeah, so when you come in, you run on a couple of ideas. And one of the bills that challenged me the most, I lead the House Page program and have for 6 years now. And so I get the privilege every week during session of talking to all of these young people from around the state, about 20 of them per week, about what it means to be in office. And the story I often tell is when I came in, I ran on the principles of local control. And I also ran on the idea of economic development, growing our economy. there was a bill that came up, and it was the plastic bag bill. Now, the backstory on this bill came out of Berkeley and it came out of Austin. So a very, in my opinion, very left-leaning bill. Now, the idea is that it would allow a municipal to charge 5 cents for every plastic bag. 5 cents. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but if you're a grandmother on a fixed income or a single-parent mom trying to feed 3 mouths, 5 cents adds up pretty quick when you're trying to carry 20 bags, right? Like that quickly turns into an extra can of food. Right. And so that to me felt egregious. But I wanted to listen to local. And so I ended up in a situation where I had a local leader who was very behind the bill. And I ended up with an entrepreneur in that area that owned 12 locations around this state, employed over 200 people around this state, that was feeding people. And I spoke to both of them. And the entrepreneur said to me, Hill, if this bill passes, this will, over the next 2 years, be 20 jobs. It will add up to 20 jobs. We've run the figures. It will be 20 jobs that it will. Now, even if it's half of that, right? If it's a 20th of that, if it's costing one job, one Oklahoman that is not employed, while also adding an additional 5 cents, an additional burden on the single parent mom or the grandmother that's fixed income. And isn't that enough to give us pause? And then the local leader, though, he was a little bit upset with me because he wanted local control. And finally what it came down to is I said to him, look, sir, do you ever see a day where your community is doing this? Well, no, of course not. My community won't do that. Said, so at the end of the day, you want me to vote yes on a bill that your community admittedly won't pass in order to say local control compared to creating jobs and ensuring that our grandmothers and young moms have more revenue. You know what I found out that day on the hierarchy? That day I leaned towards economic development. I'd run on both. I believe in both. Man, I will bleed for local control. But if local control means taking food out of mouths of Oklahomans, I'm going to stand with Oklahomans. And so I believe every day we're going to be faced with those types of decisions where we decide what's our hierarchy, what matters most. And I can tell you every single time at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Oklahomans. I'm going to fight for a young generation. I'm going to make sure they've got the jobs of the future, that they've got more opportunity tomorrow than what you and I had yesterday, that we're going to unleash our best, unburden the most. It's one reason I've run 20 repealers of boards and commissions. I've gotten rid of 11 of them now because I want to see bureaucratic red tape get out of the way. I want to see anytime that government is stifling innovation and opportunity and entrepreneurism, I mean, I want to get rid of that mess. But why? Because I believe Oklahomans have grit. Oklahomans are the people of opportunity. Oklahomans, if we will just get out of their way, provide the infrastructure that they need, that their tax dollars are paying for, man, they are the greatest people. They're the most innovative people, and Oklahoma will win. Oklahoma will thrive. So that's kind of my view.
Yeah. We've heard a lot about what you are passionate about, what your key issues are, but obviously you're out, you're talking to the people, you're knocking on doors, you're doing all of the things that you have to do during a campaign. What are the issues that you are hearing from Oklahomans that are most important to them right now?
Yeah, so little microcosms that I see kind of sticking out in the conversation. You know, we just came out of the close down of the federal government. That was very concerning on many, many people's minds. What's the long-term effect of this? We're seeing the government open back up. So that's been really over the last 40 plus days. That's very much been part of the conversations I've been in. Education will always be there. They want to make sure that their kids and their grandkids can read and write, that they can do math, that they can have every opportunity of every job within their heart and desire to do. They also have concerns towards the burdens of government. What is government saying that I can or can't do with my own land, right? Like that's a real concern. And then you even look at the cost of taxes. Now, I'm proud to tell you that as far as taxes on our property, the day you move up here from Texas, you're going to save 38% right off the bat. From certain parts of Texas, you're going to save over 40%, right? So we do have that benefit. That's something that we hear often. I hear about a personal income tax as well. I can tell you that while in the legislature, we have made cuts to the personal income tax. And frankly, we connected it with our gross domestic product in order to see when revenues increase, the income tax goes down. I think that's being strategic. I think it's being smart. And at the end of the day, there are always going to be tough decisions. There's always going to be what you decide. There's going to be someone that doesn't like it every single day. I've kind of become accustomed to. What I think is most important is just being forward about it. Like, this is where I'm at. Like, at the end of the day, with Hill, what you get is that guy every single day is going to talk more about workforce, economic development, tourism, opportunities for our kids and our grandkids than what we all had. Every day, you're going to know that that is what I feverishly work on. And I think people respect that. I believe Oklahomans desire that. They want their kids not to be moving to Dallas and Denver, right? That resonates. And so that's why, to me, it's been so important to get our message out. Our message is Oklahoma is the top. Oklahoma is the best, and don't believe anyone that's telling you otherwise. Are there things we need to fix? You bet. We will continue to invest in ourselves. We will continue to address needs in education, whether that's reading insufficiency, whether that's in rural areas or urbanized areas or wherever it is. We need to absolutely address that. Let's do it. But at the end of the day, pound for pound, no one outpunches Oklahoma. No one. And I think now is the time that we ensure that our voice is being heard, not just at home, but to that guy that walks into the coffee shop and sits with the two guys in the overalls. And that we look at him and we make it clear, well, yeah, of course you want to be in Oklahoma. This is the freest state in the union. This is the best place with the best people. This is the Oklahoma standard. We set the standard for the world in hard times and in victory. That's who we are. We're Oklahomans, and we're dadgum proud of it. And I want to see an LG that will stand up every day on a microphone or in a small room of small kids and remind them, man, they're part of the greatest state in the union, best place on earth, crossroads of America, the standard by which everybody else sets their clock. That's us. That's Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, that answers my next question, which is what does Oklahoma do better than any other state? And I think you just encompassed that. What is the most Oklahoma thing about Brian Hill?
Oh, man. This is going to sound a little self-serving, but grit. Listen, I will never, I'll never try and make you think I'm the smartest person in the room, because I'm not. I'll never allude to the fact that, I'm the best looking, I've got the most money, like none of that. Like, that's not me. But at the end of the day, you're going to be hard pressed to ever outwork me. And I think that is as Oklahoma as it gets. That is grit. That is what built this great state. It's why when the Dust Bowl came through, our people still stood. That's when the oil bust of 82 happened. Our families still thrived. That's why when the banking problems of the late 80s happened, we kept going. That's why when even the recession hit in 2009 and we were shutting down companies and we were struggling, man. But we kept going. Why? Because we got grit. We're Oklahoma. And that, to me, is what I see as I travel all around this great state, is a lot of people that care a whole lot about their neighbor and about the people they go to church with and the kids that they go to school with. Oklahomans are the most generous, kind, loving people. And even when I talk, in fact, earlier today, I had a conversation with a family that just moved here over the last year from San Diego, former military. And he came here and he was here for 90 days while his family was still out in California. And their plan was to move down to Plano. And he called his wife and said, babe, I know you're not going to believe me, but like after 90 days here, I don't want to leave. Like, these people are extraordinary. And the wife was like, are you sure about this? He's like, just come out for a visit. When his family got here, they drove in. When they pulled up to the house, the neighbors came out, hugged their necks because they had heard so much about them. They made dinner for them. And that's Oklahoma. Like, and I just think that the more you look around our great state, it's our churches, it's our communities, it's those schools. It really is the ecosystem that makes Oklahoma so Oklahoma, and it's Oklahoma grit, which is, the Oklahoma standard. So that's what I hope to be. It's what I desire to be. It's what I hope my wife and my children see in me, is I hope they see grit every day, because grit will get you through a whole lot.
Yeah, I often think that Oklahoma's greatest resource is our people.
Come on.
And you know that as well. And that story you told, and I had a conversation this morning, and it just, continues to reflect that. You mentioned your wife, your kids.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet your lovely wife recently. Are they prepared? And I know how important a wife is to everything that you and I do. Are they prepared for you to be in this role?
Yeah. So, fun fact, when I first ran 8 years ago, before I ever announced, we took about 2 months to pray about it as a family, talked about it extensively as a family. And since that first day when we announced, back in late 2017, early 2018, my wife and kids always had a veto. And I've run for re-election 3 times, and every single time we took time to pray and talk, and they all had a veto. And coming into the potential of this election, this candidacy, I mean, we took months, right? Like, I don't have to leave the legislature. I'm not termed out. This is not something that I'm trying to move one job to another. Like, my family and I believe that this is part of the call on our life. And so for Melissa, who we've been married 24 years, Eleanor, who's 19 and a freshman in college, and Josiah, who's 16 and a sophomore, they all get a say. They always have. It's always been part of the plan. It's like, if they said no, I'm out, right? And so it was a family decision. They believe in what I do. They believe that we have been blessed in this great state. They believe that opportunities abound today, but man, what tomorrow could look like if we just unleash what is great about us now. They believe in it as much as I do. In fact, Melissa, she gets it. And I love that. And I believe that's one reason that, it's so important to be equally yoked, to have someone that gets you from day one. And so I'm very blessed to share as an entrepreneur, as a business creator, as a job producer, but every bit of that's been with Melissa. She and I together. Like, it was never me, it was never just her, it was both of us. We raised our kids in that environment, and we raised our kids to believe that the highest calling is to serve, right? Like, you go build businesses and you go into community in order to produce the opportunity to serve. Now, maybe for some that's serving on your school board, thank God. Maybe that's serving at the YMCA or serving on a board of a nonprofit, right, or running for office, right? Whatever that is, go find a place to serve. And so it's not just something we talk about. It is what we live and we breathe as a family. And it's very much the Hill motto. And so I'm very proud that my kids, they get it. They want to be part of it. And they see brighter days ahead for all Oklahoma kids. They want every Oklahoma kid to be within 1 hour of an economic hub, because then they have the same opportunity as my kids.
Yeah, very good. I know we both, we celebrate the diversity of what Oklahoma has become. People are allowed to have a variety of faiths, and that's fantastic. But talk about, just briefly, again, you alluded to some things, but talk just a little bit about the role that faith plays for you and how you approach things.
For me, it's honestly, it's everything, right? Like, my faith in Jesus Christ. So we are all broken and flawed humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every one of us. And, for me, my faith is just, it's not something you can separate. Now, my faith teaches me to love everybody,
right?
To love them where they're at, how they are, who they are, to love all, right? Like, that's part of my faith. It's not just something that I say it's what I hopefully live, and the character that I want my kids and eventually my grandkids to see in me. And for me, my granddad, my mamaw, she lives in the area. I get to see her often. She's 94 now. Yeah, still loves Jesus, still praying. Thank God I've got her in my corner praying for me, because some days I need it more than others. But my faith is something that leads and guides me. Melissa and I, when we were building the companies, we served as youth ministers down off of the 10th Street area. Kids that often saw in brokenness, and so we just knew. And if I'm honest with you, this really feels very much like an extension of all of that. What I didn't realize in those 20 years of serving in the background, serving those that didn't have a voice, that I truly believe God was preparing me, guiding me for now, to make sure that I could be a voice for those that don't have one, to make sure that we are positioning kids from the best and from the most difficult situations to have opportunities. And so my faith affects every part of what I do. And at the day that I feel like my Lord and the Savior tells me I'm supposed to leave public office, well, then we're going to go do something else, and we're going to go make a difference somewhere else. But at the end of the day, in my heart, I want to make sure that we're making a difference in Oklahoma, in kids, in the next generation, because that benefits every one of us, whether we're a parent or grandparent or where we're at in our life story. All of us want better for the young generation. All of us want better for our kids and our grandkids. All of us want to leave a legacy. And I believe Oklahoma is at our best moment to do that.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give you a time limit here.
Okay.
And if you can communicate, I want you to communicate a message to the Oklahoma voters. You got 20, 30 seconds.
Okay.
Tell them what you want them to know about Brian Hill.
I'm Brian, and I care very, very much about our state. I care very much about Oklahoma. And I believe our best days are here and ahead. And I believe if we will continue to unleash our best and we will become our biggest cheerleaders, I believe our great state will move forward. I believe that the next generation will inherit something that is not just the freest state in the union, but the most prosperous state in the union. I believe we have all the mechanisms, all the opportunity, all of the things that we need here and now if we'll just invest in ourselves. And if you'll give me the opportunity, if you'll entrust me with the opportunity to be your lieutenant governor, every single day I'll give you everything that I got. I will double down, and I will ensure that your state has a voice at local level, at a national level, and frankly on the world stage. We are the place to be. And I think the world sees something in the Oklahoma Standard. We have continued to stand above the rest, and I believe now is our moment. And so, Brian Hill, and I'd be truly honored to have your vote, your support, and help me share this message. Let's move Oklahoma forward together, and let's unleash our best.
Yeah. Brian, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you, man.